So much of our work at the Illinois Innocence Project combines legal work with science and investigation, and it's something that's just really interesting, and I think provides good examples of how the things that you learn in school every day really do make a difference later in your life. You may be, I remember dissecting like owl pellets when I was in eighth grade and doing different biology assignments, and not ever thinking I would be a scientist and how would this ever apply to my life. But I find myself today as a lawyer really working with scientists on a regular basis and really trying to understand the science behind a lot of the work that we do. And it's really interesting. You know, we work with people who have been in prison for a long time. Many of them have been in prison since way before any of you guys were ever even born, 20 years, 30 years plus. And at the time when they were first arrested for a crime, there was evidence that was left behind at a crime scene in many cases. And back then, they didn't have the scientific abilities to be able to really identify a person based on what was left behind. And today, because of the work of amazing scientists around the world and amazing scientists in this country, DNA evidence has been established as well as some other technologies. And we're able to go back and look at something as simple as a piece of clothing or a drink cup or a water bottle, and just taking that one item, sending it to a lab. A scientist at the lab is able to identify who held that item, who drank from that item, who touched it based on the traces that people leave behind. So, it's really, really interesting. And then in addition to that, there's math that comes into play where we deal with sort of probabilities and possibilities, and we'll get a result back on an item, and there may be like, it could match 1 in 5,000 people in a particular group. And so we have to take those numbers and figure out, what does that mean? How strongly does this support this person's claim of innocence, or does it confirm that someone is actually on the item that we've tested? And so it really shows that the things that you learn today really do make a difference later in life, even though you think now they never will. Reading, writing is a huge part of what I do. So definitely as you go through your schooling, my advice is to keep an open mind, and things that are interesting to you, pursue them, follow them. Things that aren't so interesting to you, take them for what they are. It may not be something that you love today, but it'll be back there in your mind somewhere. And someday you're going to be like, oh, I remember learning about those owl pellets and that science class that I had and what all of that means to my life today. And you just never know where things will pop up again.